Either this sheriff's department or this police agency is holistically incompetent, or there's something else happening. Remember the coverage of the black male athlete. He goes on a trip with his white friends. He's the only African American. He dies. The sheriff is now quick to conclude that there's no evidence of criminal action and foul play. And there's another twist. Put it up for mass. You're looking at the Mississippi sheriff overseeing the investigation. His name is John Ledbetter. He was in our initial reporting. He has now told TMZ that everything investigators have gathered so far indicates no crime has taken place, even after interviewing the friends Nolan was last seen with. Before I continue, cause and effect is in proximity to each other, simply meaning you don't have time, Sheriff, to conclude an exhaustive investigation. When somebody drowns, typically the conclusion of cause of death, or if there's foul play, comes from the medical examiner, because the evidence that would have been, preserved is no longer preserved on the epidermis of a body, because water destroys evidence of foul play. And so you find cause of death by way of medical examination. They have not done that in the sheriff's department. There's more. ABC reports that authorities said they believe Wells drowned, and they already conclude they do not expect foul play. But the sheriff's office stressed Wednesday that investigators are, quote, working diligently to determine exactly what occurred, end quote. But what about the deleted messages on Nolan's phone? We're going to get into that. Now, the sheriff wants us to believe that even though he has concluded, along with his investigators, there's no crime, he wants us to believe that they are still going to investigate it, obviously, as if there's a crime. There's more. Attorney Ben Crump, our dear brother and friend, is on the case. Family of Mississippi teen Nolan Xavier Wells will conduct an independent autopsy. We talked about this when we first covered it. It's important. This will be in Washington, D.C., following the 18-year-old's mysterious death. According to Attorney Ben Crump, who revealed new details about what he says unfolded on the day Wells vanished, the friends left Horn Island and went back without Nolan. Jackson County Sheriff John Ledbetter said, quote, from what we understand, he chose to stay there. Who told you that, Sheriff? The people who would be suspects if there's a murder? There's more. Crump said investigators continue to tell the family that, quote, we don't see any evidence of any foul play, even though you have students who recorded an altercation while they were on the boats. Crump described the altercation as, quote, Nolan and somebody yelling at one another on the boat. Attorney Ben Crump is not an investigator. He's not a sheriff. He does not have the apparatus of law enforcement and the investigative tools available to him. But he's able to talk to witnesses, and witnesses are willing to talk. There's more. This video is going around, has not been confirmed by the sheriff's office, but has gained a lot of attention. Nolan arguing with friends on top of that possible altercation. And listen, we have to go into these what if scenarios and circumstantial evidence, because that's actually what an investigation would do. We have to do that here with you because the sheriff's office has refused to do so. And Crump has to do so as well. And the family has.
From what we understand, he chose to stay there. That is the official account. The sheriff's summation of an 18-year-old's final decision. A few words, spoken with the casual finality of someone reading a weather report. Before we go deeper into what the documents actually show, make sure you're subscribed to Project Cold Case, because we don't just cover the story, we follow the evidence. The boat arrives at Horn Island at 11:14 a.m. An 18-year-old star athlete, a college football player, a young man who by every account had too much at stake to be reckless. He boards the boat with 7 others. A group, a plan, a timeline, and then at 4:31 p.m. the boat departs. Nolan Wells is not on it. The gap between 300 p.m. and 4:31 p.m. is a locked room, but the room is an island, and the door is the water. The story we are given is that he chose to stay. But no one has ever been able to convincingly answer a single question: what 18-year-old chooses to stay on a barrier island, alone, without his cell phone?
One was reportedly last seen with a young woman named Katie before his disappearance. Though someone related to Katie took to Facebook to dispel rumors that she was missing. The family's attorney, Ben Crump, notes that one of the largest discrepancies lies in what happened after Wells spoke to Katie. According to Attorney Crump, one young woman said Wells had been speaking with her on Horn Island and told her he was going back to get on his friend's boat. Now you have a significant discrepancy of intent and location. There's more. Meanwhile, his friends claim Wells told them he was going to stay back and talk to the young woman. The late 18-year-old's best friend, Javon Williams, who was also at Horn Island on July 4th, told the Biloxi Sun-Herald that he saw Wells after 4 p.m., noting that Wells was hanging out with a girl and other friends during the trip, and that they both left their phones on the boat that Wells took to the island. Hey, once again, every piece of information that we currently have has basically been provided to us through the attorneys by permission of the family. These investigative elements were not in place when we first reported on this story. As a matter of fact, the official conclusion from
One narrative says he wanted to stay with a girl. Another says he told the girl he was going back to the boat. These are not two sides of the same story. They are two separate realities. The clock is ticking. Think of it like this: the evidence doesn't scream. It whispers. And in this case, the whispers are becoming a roar. There is a frantic distress call from the boat after it has left. The bilge pump is failing. The boat is taking on water. The caller is panicked. On the enhanced audio, the muffled background has been interpreted by some to include the words, "As he dead." Others here check his chest. The sound of panic. The sound of something having gone catastrophically wrong. But the sheriff's office had already concluded. No evidence of foul play. They said it on the very day the body was found. They said it before an autopsy was conducted. And we are supposed to believe that this is a standard investigative process. The same sheriff's department that didn't have time to interview the primary witnesses thoroughly is now arguing that the evidence doesn't support a crime. There was no evidence of foul play. He said it once. The data shows no recorded drownings on Horn Island in the 6 years prior. Not one. Nolan Wells is an anomaly, a statistical impossibility, a red flag. The independent autopsy, conducted by Dr. Roger Mitchell, found a red discoloration on the back of Nolan's head. The throat structures were missing, retained by the official investigation. It's standard procedure. But standard procedure, in this case, is still a question, an unanswerable question because the body had already decomposed.
Is standard. Now there's more, and it involves 7 key questions that do remain. How Wells went into the water before being found on the beach of Horn Island 2 days after his party. What his body's position was when it was found. Did he have water in his airway? Was there any evidence of injuries to his neck? The remaining key questions, according to Mitchell, are: was there evidence of intracranial hemorrhaging or bleeding? What was in Wells's stomach? And what did the toxicology determine? So during Wednesday's press conference, NAACP President Derek Johnson accused investigators of mishandling the case. Quote, "We are accusing them of being derelict in their duties to follow up and to ensure that regardless of what happened, there was a proper investigation," he said. Last week, the NAACP passed a resolution urging law enforcement, including the U.S. Department of Justice, to complete an in-depth and openly transparent review of how Nolan came to be left on the island and of all activities leading up to the time when his body was recovered. Wells was laid to rest in Mississippi following a memorial service in Ocean Springs, at which the Reverend Al Sharpton officiated. In a fiery eulogy, Sharpton promised a $100,000 reward for any new information about the circumstances surrounding Wells' death. Half of that sum will be covered by the actor and producer Tyler Perry, who, as we reported, also paid for the funeral, Sharpton noted. The AP giving us updates here. So it's just a lot. And I saw a posting by Nolan Wells' mother last night. It is enormous, heartbreaking to think of what the family is going through. Bad enough to lose a child, but like this, and not knowing what your child may or may not have suffered through at the very end of his life. A child who had brought so much joy and had so much life left to give, so much in front of him. So for the NAACP, Benjamin Crump, of course, the civil rights attorney we've come to know all too well, and the Reverend Al Sharpton, the hope that this money, and thank you, Tyler Perry, for always being there, this money can perhaps draw someone out. Somebody knows something more, okay? Even if it is just a horrible, tragic accident, somebody knows something. And now desperate for this information and to fill in the gaps and answer those 7 questions, the hope is that the money can draw someone out, to give this family some, I won't say peace, some sense of knowing, just knowing, so they can get on with what's left of their lives.
There was no evidence of foul play. He said it twice. When you have a grand jury, you need a suspect. You need someone to present evidence against. If the sheriff's office already concluded there is no crime, then why is this case going to a grand jury? The only logical answer is that the family refused to accept the narrative. The NAACP, Ben Crump, and the national attention forced accountability. The sheriff's office is now performing an investigation they had already publicly concluded. The father, Elmore, said it best. If you go with 5, you come back with 5. That's the moral refrain. A lesson taught daily. A principle Nolan knew. The father says, "You're lying to me." That is the family's position. They know their child, and they know the story doesn't make sense. There was no evidence of foul play. He said it a third time. The case is set to go to a grand jury. The family has raised a reward for information. Someone knows something. We are asking you to look at the facts. Look at the timeline. Look at the data on Horn Island. Look at the official press release from the Jackson County Sheriff's Department on the day Nolan's body was found. It's there in the public record. The statement concludes that no foul play is suspected. Read the date and ask yourself, was that a conclusion, or was it a narrative designed to close a case before it could even be opened? If you believe there are answers in this case, like share, subscribe, and turn on notifications for Project Cold Case.